Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network. I mean, it's chilling to watch this Fox News town hall. And when Trump talked about not defending other NATO nations, the crowd cheered and hooted and hollered and just woohoo. It's just, you wake up and think, I don't know what's happened to my country. We were just talking about this poor non-binary student who was beaten to death. This frozen embryo decision. And, I not jokingly, but said this, welcome to our brave new world. I mean, Brian tweets, they were never going to stop with Roe. They're coming for IVF. Mm-hmm. They're coming for birth control. They're plotting a nationwide ban. They're coming for gay marriage. I mean, Carl, this is, I'm sure for you too, the most terrifying time in our history.
It is shocking and frightening to see all of these different pieces of the fabric of our country being turned back, and seeing so many people willing to roll over for it. Fortunately, there are a lot more people in this country who are willing to stand up and fight to make sure it doesn't happen. We've seen that in election after election, special elections especially. Those are a good indicator of how things are actually going versus the polling. Mm-hmm. And Democrats continue to roll up victories in these special elections with Thom and others. So that's encouraging. But we can't allow any of this to put us back on our heels or to get any of us to become ostriches putting our heads in the sand.
And Carl, IVF is another subject on which the American people vastly agree with us. I mean, Mike Pence and his wife used IVF. Nikki Haley had one of her children through IVF.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to see reporters begin asking people like the Pences and the Haleys if they think that they should go to jail for the embryos that the fertilized embryos that they killed after they moved on.
Yeah, what the Pences do with those embryos, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just, Mrs. Betty Bowers tweeted a picture of the egg section at the supermarket and said, just visiting an orphanage. It's funny, but not. I also, Carl, I don't know how many more examples we need, laboratories in the states and whatnot, that Republicans just can't govern. Texas has spent over $148 million busing migrants to other parts of the country. Meanwhile, their electric grid doesn't work. Winnie tweets, the governor closed rural hospitals all over Texas. They have minimal social services, hard to obtain, hasn't repaired the electrical grid, with people dying winter and summer, yet he spends millions to ship people to other states instead of helping them. I mean, this is just the starkest choice we've ever faced in November, isn't it?
Absolutely. And a lot is being driven out of Texas in terms of, how the rest of the American right gets its marching orders for how to pursue policy. So, it is a frightening time to be an American. It's a very frightening time to be a Texan.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, someone sitting there freezing going, oh, my heat doesn't work, but woohoo, there's less brown people here. Woohoo! I mean, it's just
horrifying.
I mean, it really is. That's the
all
word.
For a gimmick.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
All for a gimmick.
Yep.
And the ability to say, look how cruel I've been.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, the cruelty is the point. Thank you, Chris. Exactly. We collided getting to that. I hip-checked you into the boards.
I should have let you
and
do
I
it 'cause
apologize.
Your name is on the show.
Yeah, it is the Stephanie.
I know.
Whatever. Molly Young fast. There's another one. If Trump becomes president again, his people are going to use the Comstock Act to ban the mailing of abortion pills. The architect of SB 8 already told the New York Times that was his plan. I mean, we were saying this judge in the embryo case is a Christo nationalist.
Yeah.
I mean, handmade jokes are officially banned from now on because they're not jokes anymore.
No.
No, they're not. In fact, people might if Trump wins, people might as well start investing in dry cleaning services because they're going to be busy with those red robes.
Yeah. No. I never want to see, quote, the wrath of God in any courtroom decision. Ever.
My God, we've seen that meme about butter emails, the women in the red outfits, and now it's like, but I just thought Biden was old. I don't know if you happened to hear our opening segment or watch Lawrence O'Donnell last night, Carl, but, like you, Lawrence knows a lot about the actual, tasks of governing and how it works. And he just was saying, basically, it is too late. Like, stop with this, fantasy football, oh, maybe Joe Biden should step down. Maybe there's someone else. And he was saying no one can ever name. The only name that comes up would be, Gavin Newsom. And, he was talking about the realities of what would happen in Chicago in August, right? He would come out of there with zero money, right?
and you don't know what you'd actually come out with, because you
Right.
don't know what trading would happen to get delegate votes, etc. But what I do know is that regardless of what happens, people can be organizing right now to defeat Donald Trump in November, period, right? That means contacting their local Democratic parties and becoming a volunteer for them so they can go door knocking and make phone calls and, contributing directly to the party so that they can help with ground operations and, attending Sexy Liberal.
Thank you.
All the things one
Thank
does
you. If you like your comedy, not of the both sides do it variety, but of the sexy liberal variety, we are announcing a lot of things.
A lot. Holy cow.
And speaking of which, may I just name drop who have I been texting with, Jody?
Mark Hamill.
No, well, I mean, it is. We find ourselves in more and more extraordinary times every day, don't we? I mean, that is the question now. Were they witting agents of Russian disinformation? Were they in on it? But it sure
Here's a
seems like.
question. I mean, at this point, I think what is abundantly clear is that regardless of the facts at hand, and this is how we know it, right? Like, so yes, this case we've now learned yet again at its core was rotten. But look at how they're handling Hunter Biden. Look at how they're handling every element of the attack on President Biden. It is all meant for politics. Otherwise, they would have already had testimony from Hunter Biden in public, right?
Yeah.
And so each of these things is designed to harness the best way of damaging Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And that's why they want to do these things in secret so that they can leak snippets that sound damaging, and then, not caring that 3 months later, the rest of the news is going to come out and it's going to appear to be entirely different than than was originally described. So this is just one more example of why Comer and Jim Jordan can't be taken seriously about literally anything.
Did you see this moment yesterday on CNN? I mean, they just double and triple and quadruple down. Here he is with Manu Raju.
You said that 1023 is the most corroborating piece of information you have.
Corroborates, but it doesn't change those fundamental facts. So now
It's not true.
It's not true. They said it was
Right.
their main cooperation and main witness, and it just blew up. And they just are like, oh, well, that doesn't change anything. Yes, it does. It changes everything.
Let's be clear, it's not their main, it's their only.
Thank you. Yeah, David tweeted, this is arguably the biggest, most important news of the past 18 hours. An FBI informant allegedly gave Kremlin and anti-Biden propaganda to top Republicans who built a fake impeachment case on it. It has Putin's fingerprints all over it. The New York Times published it on page A16. This is part of the problem, Carl, is that. Right? Lindy Lee also echoing that. New York Times buried GOP using Russian propaganda to impeach Biden on page 16. Meanwhile, New York Times offers breathless coverage of Biden's age with 4 stories on its front page. It suggested Biden's age is even worse than Trump's threats against Europe. This is how our democracy dies. What the buck? Help us, Carl.
The buck has to stop somewhere. I mean, we can extend this metaphor a little further, but look, we can't let people not know about this. So go find that New York Times story and show them why it should have been on the front page. Everybody listening to the sound of my voice needs to get that New York Times story and share it on social media, because what happens is the editors will see that story had a lot of pickup, far more deserving than the page it was given in print.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, ironically, disinformation, once again, is our biggest enemy. I happen to be listening to a caller to Randy Rhoads, and I know there is a section of this country we're never going to get back, because he just said Fani Willis is a racist, she's going after Donald Trump, and she doesn't prosecute black people ever. Just like completely untrue. Talk these people out of this, and this is exactly what Putin knows, right?
Not worth the effort. Look how far we've come since 2016, right? In 2015-16, it was about the Russians using the internet to, take captive part of the American electorate with misinformation. Now they've taken captive Republicans in Congress, in leadership in Congress, to try and do the same thing against the current president. So it is only going to get worse from here. And rather than spending our time trying to convince Republicans who are captive to this narrative that they're wrong, there are plenty of people out there who don't know about any of this and are just waiting to be activated into becoming a voter. And we need to get those people out to vote.
Yeah.